The story of betrayal often starts in places we least expect, like the spaces we've shared with family. I was 38 years old, living a life that, on the surface, appeared to be everything I had ever wanted. I had a loving wife, Camila, who stood by my side through thick and thin, and twin boys, 4 years old, who filled our home with laughter and chaos. I had built a career as a software engineer, working with a tech startup that promised endless possibilities. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. It was a life I had fought hard to create and was proud of. But what do you do when that world is shattered by someone you trusted the most? When betrayal doesn't come from a stranger or a fleeting lover, but from someone who shared your childhood, your secrets, your struggles? That's what happened when my younger sister, Vivon, decided to turn my entire world upside down. Vivon and I grew up close as two siblings could be. We fought over small things: who got the remote, whose turn it was to eat the last piece of candy, but when it counted, we had each other's backs. When our parents divorced when I was 15 and she was 12, it was a heavy blow. But instead of dividing us, it drew us closer. She became my confidant in a world that suddenly felt uncertain. As time passed, however, things changed. I worked hard to build my life while Vivon struggled in hers. She dropped out of college twice, moved from one failed relationship to another. Never seemed to settle in one place for too long. Never judged her for it, though. I knew people found their paths at different speeds. I didn't realize, though, how much resentment she had been quietly harboring toward me. It started with comments, small digs at family gatherings. Ivan would say things like how everything had come so easily to me, how I'd always been the golden child, and how she was stuck struggling for everything. I dismissed it as sibling rivalry that never really died. After all, she was my sister. I loved her, and I thought that was enough. Then came the requests for money. You help? With rent this month? I need to pay my car payment, my medical bills, ... I said yes every time. That's what family does, right? I thought it was normal to support your family, especially when they're struggling. But for Vivon, my help was never an act of kindness. Resented it. Resented the way I handed over the money, and even the way I looked at her while doing it. You don't get it, she told me once. I hate that I have to ask. I hate that you can just give me money and make it look like charity. The resentment had been growing, and I couldn't see it. The breaking point came during our nephew's birthday party. Marcus's son was turning 7, and we were all at his house. The usual family event, kids running around, laughter filling the air, the smell of barbecue in the background. Vivon had been drinking, which wasn't unusual for her. But tonight, something felt different. She seemed more agitated than I'd ever seen her. It was when she cornered me by the pool, out of earshot of everyone else, that things took a turn. She started demanding that I give her $15,000 to help her start a catering business, a business she'd never mentioned before. I wasn't sure if it was a good idea. Considering her past, I felt hesitant. I suggested she put together a business, plan something concrete that would show me she had really thought this through. That was all it took. She exploded. She started yelling, accusing me of thinking I was better than her, of never supporting her dreams, and that I was just like our father, making her jump through hoops to prove herself. The entire party had heard. It was humiliating for everyone, but I stayed calm, tried to de-escalate, and eventually, Marcus and our mother convinced her to leave early. I thought that would be the end of it. Little did I know it was only the beginning. 3 weeks later, I was at work when 2 police detectives showed up. They asked if they could speak to me privately, and my stomach sank. I could feel it in my gut, the premonition of something terrible, but I couldn't imagine what it could be. They told me that Vivon had filed a police report accusing me of sexually abusing her when we were children. The accusations were specific, detailed, and according to the detectives, very credible. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. The words wouldn't come out of my mouth for what felt like an eternity. When I finally managed to speak, all I could say was, "That never happened." But even as I said it, I realized how hollow those words sounded. How do you prove a negative? How do you prove something didn't happen 25 years ago? They explained that I wasn't under arrest yet, but I needed to stay in town, not contact Vivon, and definitely get a lawyer. They were polite, professional, but I could see in their eyes that they believed her. The drive home that day was the longest 20 minutes of my life. How would I tell Camila? How could I tell her that my sister had accused me of something so horrific? That even saying the words felt like they poisoned the air around us. Camila's reaction was immediate, unwavering support. But I could see the fear in her eyes. It wasn't fear of me. She knew me too well to believe I was capable of what Vivian had claimed. No, it was fear of what the accusation would do to our family, to our boys, to my career. And to be honest, I shared that fear. Within 48 hours, I was suspended from work. Within a week, rumors spread through our social circles. Parents at my boys' preschool started avoiding us. Friends stopped calling. The presumption of innocence might be a fundamental right, but in reality, an accusation like this stains everything. Even before I could defend myself, it had already consumed my life. My lawyer, Patricia Hendris, was blunt. These kinds of cases were incredibly difficult to defend. It would be my word against Vivian's, and juries often sided with accusers in child abuse cases. We spent weeks going through family records, photos, anything that could contradict Vivian's timeline. The real nightmare came during the preliminary hearing. I sat there, watching Vivian recite her fabricated story with tears in her eyes, the perfect amount of hesitation and trauma in her voice. And yet part of me could see why people believed her. She wasn't asking for money, wasn't seeking revenge. In the typical sense, from the outside, she seemed like a victim finally finding the courage to speak her truth. But I knew the truth. The truth was she was lying. The case dragged on for 8 months. 8 months of my life put on hold. 8 months of draining legal fees, stress eating away at Camila, and whispers behind my back. Some family members quietly distanced themselves, unsure of what to believe. My family, torn apart by the accusations, couldn't understand how this had happened. Then, during the trial, something Vivian hadn't counted on happened. Patricia, in her meticulous way, started poking holes in her story. Small inconsistencies. Nothing major enough to entirely discredit her, but enough to plant seeds of doubt. And then came the moment that changed everything. Patricia asked Vivian about a specific incident that supposedly occurred during Christmas break when I was 17 and she was 14. Vivian had claimed it happened in our childhood bedroom while our parents were at a neighbor's holiday party. But Patricia pulled out a family photo from that exact Christmas, a photo I'd almost forgotten about. It showed our entire family at my grandmother's house. 3 hours away from where Vivian had claimed the incident occurred. Instead of admitting she'd made a mistake, instead of adjusting her story like she had with other inconsistencies, Vivian panicked, became defensive, angry, accusing Patricia of trying to confuse her. And then came the question that ended everything. Is it possible you were mistaken about when these events happened, or is it possible they didn't happen at all? The courtroom went silent. Yvonne looked at me for the first time throughout the entire trial. And for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Not the fake trauma she had been performing for months, but genuine fear. Then she broke. She whispered, "I made it up." The courtroom erupted. Her lawyer scrambled to stop her, but Vivian kept speaking, spilling out the truth, how she had made it all up. How she had been angry at me for having a better life. How she wanted to destroy my world the way she felt hers had been destroyed. The judge immediately stopped the proceedings, and within hours, she was charged with perjury and filing a false police report. The legal nightmare was over for me, but the emotional devastation was just beginning. My name was cleared. My job was restored, but the betrayal of my own sister, the person I had trusted with my life, left scars that will never fade, and I'll never forget the look in her eyes when she confessed. No remorse, no apology. Just pure anger that her plan had failed. I haven't spoken to Vivian since. She moved across the country shortly after her sentencing, and as far as I know, none of our family has had contact with her. Some family members tried reaching out, but she still insists I deserved everything she put me through. Sometimes, I wonder if I should have seen it coming.